Hello and welcome to the Proptech Hot Seat on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we explore the trends and technologies driving innovation across the built environment. This show is brought to you in partnership with Proptech Ireland, the hub for innovators, investors and indeed for industry leaders. In the Proptech Hot Seat today is Nitin Govila, and he's joining us from Dubai. Nitin is the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Serge Ferrari, manufacturer and seller of composite materials. And today we're going to discuss maybe some of the technical fabrics for use in the interior and exterior of around the built environment. And we'll take a look at maybe some of the innovation that this company is doing. So Nitin, thank you for joining us. You're very welcome today.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for having me over. And it's my pleasure to be with you on this on this podcast.
Very good. So Nitin, I mentioned there that Serge Ferrari is, of course, a global company. You're joining us from Dubai, and I know your responsibility is around the EMEA area. But essentially, for anybody in the construction industry who is not familiar with your products, you might just give us an overview as to the products and the offering globally.
Yeah. So Serge Ferrari, I mean, historically is also still now, it's a French company. In fact, we are in our 50th year of existence. It's primarily a French company, but now it's a bigger group, having acquired some companies in Germany and different parts of the world. And it's a world leader or market leader in composite materials. For people who may not be so much familiar, the other name we may say is technical fabrics. Basically used for interior and exterior applications for varied uses, depending on the kind of building and the structure you have. And it's a B2B business in that sense. So we have customers and clients and direct purchasers. We take a distributor route or a direct manufacturer route to sell our products across the world to different customers and different applications. We identify 4 strategic markets for our businesses, along with some additional markets. I manage the business for Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. So I'm shuttling my time between Singapore, which is my home base anyway, and also different parts of the world. So now I'm in Dubai because we have the world. So that's what is in brief the company is.
Very good. And you might just then take us through some of because there's a range of products and services there. And I know you touched on, before we start recording, you certainly touched on the manufacturing that's happening in France and Germany. But for products and services that are available to the construction industry, you might just break those down now.
Yeah. So as I said, we have products both for interior and exterior. So I'll start with the interior part. So interior parts, we have the fabrics for interior blinds, for interior ceilings, for furniture. Those are primarily the 3 main products. So interior ceilings, and we also have fabrics which we call as acoustic membranes, which can be used for ceiling and wall finishes, and even for blinds. So that way. Obviously, each of these blinds and come with different characteristics and features. In terms of plus we also have a category called non-combustible blinds, which are required in some parts of the world depending on the fire norms and requirements. Then if you go on the exterior, where there's a much bigger range, we have exterior blinds. Then we have facades, which are fixed facades. Exterior blinds could be fixed, could be motorizable or manual operated, but the exterior facades are fixed facades, which help you to manage thermal and heat and other elements of the building and light. Then we have awnings, fixed awnings, and again retractable fabrics. And then we also have pergolas, which is a growing market for outdoor seating and restaurants. So again, that could be retractable or fixed. Then if you go on a higher application, we have fabrics for tents, for events, for temporary tents, for warehousing and everything. Also lodges, which is a growing market for game reserves. People prefer that. On a bigger part, we have fabrics for stadiums. Recently in Qatar World Cup, we did 5 stadiums. We have done 20 pavilions in Dubai Expo, and across the world, we've done many stadiums and continue to do so. Then we have fabrics which can be used for airports, walkways, shadings, amphitheaters, name it. So depending on the kind of design and the application and the expectation of the functionality, the designers can come out with the right specification of the fabric, and we have it. So it's available. Then on the industrial part, we have fabrics for biogas domes, and then for water liners, for fish farming, and then on furniture, as I mentioned, for outdoor furniture, and also for marine applications, which is a very key one. So marine protection for yachts, for your cruise liners, the outside furniture. So we have a multiple of products for different applications, and each of them vertical is through a different business model. It's still B2B, but depending on the type of customer. So if it's in blinds, we will sell our fabric to a blind manufacturer. If it's in tensile and big structures, we will sell to tensile fabricators or converters, as we call. Same in furniture, we will sell to a furniture manufacturer. So it's again varies as per the market.
And Nitin, you referred to technical fabrics as the fifth element of construction, essentially. Yes. And I think that might be a surprise to some people, you know, when they hear you talk about the use of this type of material for the exterior of permanent structures.
Yes. Yes.
So where does that fit in terms of building standards and safety, you know, from a combustibility point of view, and obviously sustainability that's driving so many of our design choices right now?
So, as I said, when it comes to exterior fabrics, obviously that's where the real technicality comes. There are different kinds of elements there. You have fabrics which are polyester coated with PVC. Then you have fabrics which are glass yarns coated with PTFE with a higher combustibility index. So depending on what's the structure is, say, for example, a stadium, then there would be obviously the final client. It could be a country. It could be a sports ministry in a country. And then after that, they will work with the designers or engineers or well-known architects across the world who generally would be quite aware of these kinds of products. And depending on the design they want to do, then the whole structure and concept is created. There are technical softwares which are obviously you have to go a 1 to 2 years technical full course, like a mini engineering course, to become an expert to do that designing. The softwares may run in the range of 30 to 50,000 euros to have that software. So all that software also takes into account where you are based, which part of the world you're based, what are the energy loads, what are the wind loads, water and everything. So they create a design with a certain safety factor. And that's where then after that, once the final client approves, then you start going about, okay, how do you do the patterning, the cutting and the welding? So people are experts on that. And these kind of structures, when they are kept in mind or designed or a product is defined, it's with a certain life. You know, you may talk about 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40. You have many stadiums which are there still 30, 35, 40 years. In Dubai, the biggest landmark, I say, is Burj Al Arab, which everybody knows, that in the ship hull shape, that's a fabric. Not many people know that even in Dubai. They think it's a panel or whatever, but that white color is actually a fabric, and we are in the 25th year of that project. So now that gives confidence to people to understand that, yes, this is something it can last. And more importantly, you come out with those fixed elements, as I said, whether you use brick, steel, or steel is anyway used where you're making a fabric structure, but you're using bricks, stones, or whatever. There you have very less flexibility to play with the shape sometimes. Here you can actually convert your dreams into reality, or the imagination into reality, and create your own unique, iconic signature structure, which every designer and architect or a final client aims to have, that, okay, this becomes my postcard of my city or my country in that sense. So I think that's where this kind of material really helps people who really wish to, explore that.
I love when you talk about that, that these materials allow architects to really play with the design, because that is every architect's dream. And I mean, you reference a particularly iconic building there. The shape is instantly recognizable in any context. And I mean, that again must be the hallmark of successful design. But in terms of innovation, then, how closely are you working with designers? I mean, which is the driving force? Are you driving this, or are you more responding to maybe architects trying to achieve more and more ambitious and iconic designs?
I would say it's both. Obviously, sometimes when projects are at very initial stage, then we try to work with the design firms or the architect firms. The bigger firms, when they're working, normally when it's a big project, it's the bigger firms who are working, who obviously will have their own design team. But sometimes what we also bring to the table is the possibilities to share the different kinds of materials which are there, not only which they may have used it in the past, but also some new developments of new products which are coming. And that helps them to think also differently and even explore. Like many years back, stadiums never had facades. Now facades has become an integral part of the stadiums, because you can really play, you can play with the branding, you can play with the lighting, and still you're able to, give good comfort for people. Third element which has now got added is acoustics, inner acoustics inside the stadium. So that's also, we have a fabric for that. So now people have become more open on that. So when they're working on it, these are the things we bring to the table. But sometimes when there are smaller projects or design firms, they may not have the necessary infrastructure or team to do the design. We also have an in-house design support where we'll work with them, try to give few options on the table so that people are not saying, okay, when it comes to membranes, there's only one kind of design I see. We are also able to bring few more elements to feed them. So in that sense, then they can decide, okay, this looks interesting. Why not I go for this? And it matches with the ethos of my values, which I want to bring, or the culture of a city or a country in that sense. So we are able to bring that also on table. So it's a mutual regular interactions. It takes time, big projects. If you have to deliver, say in 5 years' time, I mean, like stadiums in Qatar, the World Cup was last year, but the work was already done by 2019. But the construction was done 2019. You imagine the design would have been maybe 2014 or 15 and 16. So there's a longer time on a bigger project. So we are involved very closely.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the acoustic benefits, particularly for these stadia and other huge event centres, because what we're seeing increasingly is that cities are becoming denser, more compact, yes, and yet we still need these large venues. We're trying to get more people to live back in the heart of city centres, and yes, we know there's a growing intolerance to noise. In fact, it's being labelled as one of the largest environmental nuisances, and noise pollution is a problem that cities right around the world, smart cities, are actively resourcing and targeting. So actually, from the acoustics point of view and the innovation, how much of that is external and how much of that is internal? So can your acoustic fabrics be used internally? So for example, we see in office space, we see that one of the things post-COVID keeping people out of the workplace and working remotely is that actually they have a complete intolerance to office noise, the normal workplace noise that they would have been accustomed to prior to 2019. Now people just can't concentrate with it. So now suddenly we're seeing that's a huge consideration now for interior designers also. Do your materials work both interior and exterior for that?
Absolutely. So if I start from exteriors, it's mostly for covered exteriors, meaning it's still under the roof. And then for interiors, it can be used for ceilings, it can be on walls, and the fact that you can even print on them. And the way I prefer to talk about acoustics is that we are not in the soundproofing business. What I say, the fabrics help you to distinguish between bad noise and good sound, right? So you're going in a restaurant, you're a friend group of 5 or 6 people, right? You still want to talk to each other and listen each other. But what you want to do is not be conditioned or influenced by these tables around you, that you're not able, you have to shout to each other who's just say a meter away or a half a meter away across the table. So that's where acoustic fabrics work, because what they do is they absorb the sound, and the reverberation back or the reflection back is not so much compared if it was a open wall surface or some other surfaces which are immediately reflecting the sound. So that's what the acoustic fabric does. So it creates a comfortable space of working where you can still talk, converse, be with each other, because we are not talking about a recording room here, because then it's a total different kind of element. So what you want to make is a comfortable space, and that's where acoustic fabrics play a role. But you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, there are not many I would say, context given to that, in terms of while designing. It's always a kind of an afterthought. It's not part of the original part. Like the aesthetic part is the key part, right? Beyond that, nobody's talking about this, but people also now, I suppose, little bit more awareness is coming because because of COVID, this mental, workspace wellness, mental element has started gaining more traction, right? So people have started realizing that sound does play a part. But it's still a long way in that sense, because people think, oh, it's an added cost. But if people start thinking at the design stage itself, it can make a lot of difference. In fact, we have blinds itself which can absorb, reflect back a lesser amount of sound, which in a way then serves both the purposes. Not only you get a good aesthetic of the room and protect yourself from light and heat, but at the same time, it plays a role of acoustics, and without, being kind of something exterior, something coming out, hitting the eye as if it looks out of place. It's part of the design. So this is some education we try to do when we are meeting the designers, but it's still a long gap which exists in terms of being aware and being open to explore that.
I'm really glad that you brought this up, because actually the whole, you've hit a very important point there, and I think it's worth repeating that actually when it comes to particularly workplace noise and venue noise, actually the answer isn't silence, and there is this growing industry and this growing science of soundscaping. So actually we know that silence isn't the answer. It's actually to get that flow and balance of sound right, and that creates to the soundscape. And in fact, in terms of workplace well-being, I know the Well Building Institute has done a whole body of really innovative and exciting work on this, and there's a lot of new science now available that is really contributing. And you're absolutely right, if we can get this at design stage, so actually the education factor really needs to be amongst designers, architects, but also for the building, the development and building community to understand that this is of key importance and to resource it, because designers are increasingly seeing the importance of it, but they can only do that if the budget is there, if the design is there, if it's being resourced. So it's actually the development and construction side that we need to actually really, I think, raise the awareness around soundscaping. But it's for anybody who has an interest in this, I definitely recommend go on to the Well Building Institute and take a look at some of their recent reporting on soundscapes. It's absolutely fascinating, and so it's exciting to hear the technology and the innovation that you're working on to be able to actually capture that and bring that to life and practice. So that's a really interesting one. And I suppose the next one, obviously, we need to talk about is sustainability, because that is such a huge driving factor for any construction product innovation right now. So in terms of sustainability, because you have the benefit of, I know that you mentioned that in your company, kind of there's a responsibility, the globe, the planet is broken in two in terms of responsibility, but there's a global awareness of maybe the trends that are happening. So around sustainability trends globally, what are you seeing as the driving forces for construction material innovation?
I think part of it is driven by obviously the climate accord, and different companies, countries are signatory to it, to the accord. It's mostly more or less nearly all the countries. So they have to meet certain criteria. So there's a good buzz around that within the countries. For sure, then it immediately translates when you look at a building. And now in a building, how the building is made, what are the different materials used, and at the same time, what energy is consumed by that building in that sense. So then it automatically comes down to when you look at composite materials, because in composite materials, there are many elements. In fact, Serge Ferrari is the only end-to-end company starting making our own yarns, and to making the final product. So we are much more in control of our process, and that's why our products are more technology superior. So it also gives us a chance then to work with our suppliers to understand their processes, how sustainable they are, whether a yarn supplier, for example, or a raw material for a yarn supplier, or pigments or resins or any other things which are needed for different kind of features and technicalities which a product should give. So it helps us to look at even what are the different alternative materials which are there. So we have a very strong R&D department. We spend nearly 3 to 4% of our annual turnover on R&D. And part of that, we have a team in that which is focusing on future technologies, future alternative materials which may come, and how do they impact in terms of not only the processes, but also what kind of material we are able to bring out, which can suffice that, whether it's in terms of can be degraded, can be recycled, or itself the materials coming through recycled materials, or how you can not damage, or how when you do with designing like for exterior facades, you can actually reduce the thermal load on the building to the tune of 70-80%. Now, how do we educate on that also? So all these elements are a key part of our strategy. We've identified a key driver message through what we say is CSHR, and we've added the human element because finally it boils on all of us. And the driving force in that is plus equals 0, meaning can we do more with less? So in fact, if today we are doing X of sales, can I do 2X of sales, but use the same kind of consumption which I'm using for X? Now, that's what we are trying to work on also. So as a responsible company. So this is an ongoing continual process. There's a lot of efforts which are going on. Sometimes, we are pushed in a certain direction much faster. Sometimes we take it on our initiative that it has to be done for the betterment. So that's one element. We are also trying to change in terms of our internal policies, right? When it comes to company rental vehicles, what kind of vehicles are we proposing to our employees? What kind of environment are we creating in our own offices? So those kinds of things we are trying to also work, that it's not only about the products we sell, but also how we work and connect. And that's becoming part of our messaging when we work with our customers and architects. And sometimes we say, this material, if you use, this is the advantage. It can help you to get maybe a platinum LEED rating or some other kind of rating in any part of the world to help them, fulfill the requirements.
I think it's very important what you say there, that actually, irrespective of the product and service and offering and the innovation that's going into this, actually what we're seeing is that the ethos of sustainability does start at the core. It starts, if you can't do it within your own operations, it's very difficult to convince the marketplace that you can do it credibly outside of that. So I think that that's an important message to kind of repeat to the industry. Nitin, I don't know if it's an accurate figure, but I've read that 80% of all the buildings that will be on Earth by 2050 have already been constructed. So on that basis, can your products and services be used equally to retrofit and bring existing buildings up to scratch, or are you solely focused on the new build, new development side?
No, we can. And that's where I think there are two elements which we bring to the table. One is the exterior facades, because if you have to renovate a building, it's an old building. So the only way you can do is take it down, or maybe change the glass, or maybe change the paint. But in the end, the consumption of the building towards energy, you will never be able to change. So that's where exterior facades, if you put, those actually block nearly 75 to 80% of thermal heat coming inside the building, while it still gives you the same kind of comfort inside the building to the occupant. They do not lose the view through. They are still able to feel they are connected to the exterior environment. And at the same time, inside, they have a good, I would say, light ambience, less of glare. The heat is managed well. The air conditioning load goes down. We have certain case studies which are proven of commercial buildings, where it kind of transformed not only aesthetically the building to increase the occupancy rate and the ROI, but also give an energy saving. So this is also a key element we try to push. We participate in a lot of a lot of facade conferences across the world. And one of the messages we try to give is about this, that how exterior facades you can manage the aesthetics, the lighting, the energy, the sustainability part, the load of this. So for sure, the existing buildings you can do. On the inside, if you just want to do on the inside, then it's about using the right kind of blinds, the right kind of acoustic material, so those kind of comfort you can do. And then if you have a structure where you're looking for more about comfort to people also, then you kind of drew the coverings where the fabric element is easy to install. You can cover open space between two buildings. You can create an open space which is there already, but you want to make it more usable. You can easily install the fabric, because in that sense, it's quite easy to do. So those are the elements where the composite material or the technical fabrics bring to the table for the existing buildings.
How receptive to innovation is the industry? On the ground, for your team going out on the ground, how receptive is the industry? Is it willing to embrace innovation?
Yes, it is. So when you talk about the industry, it's about either the suppliers or the manufacturers. And then the other element which play a very key role is the influencers, as I say, which are more the architects, designers, and engineering firms. I think in innovation, I would say it depends, again, company to company, how much money they are willing to put, and either they are followers and leaders. We pride ourselves to say that we are the leaders. We invest so much money on this. So we wish to take the lead, even though others may follow or not follow. That's not really important for us. And then also understanding from these architects, influencers, designers, or engineers, how things are changing, what are they expecting. So we are happy to work, sometimes come back and work on certain products and projects to develop a specific product even for their requirement, which is related to that. Because other building materials everybody knows. Now these are things where they also feel there's a lot of possibility to innovate, because you can change the yarn, you can change the certain other raw material, create a total different kind of product. So yes, people are open. They are also open to listen to us if we bring something on the table, and willing to experiment and try also.
That's a positive one. And I suppose with the benefit of your global perspective, can you point to one particular country or geographic location that's maybe taken the lead in terms of innovation for the built environment?
Actually, there are many, I would say, but I would say China comes to me as one very example, where they innovate with structures, with shapes, with elements of energy to make a very unique, iconic thing. We see that now happening a lot also in some of the other Asian countries, like in India or Southeast Asia. But having said that, even in Europe, even in Africa or other parts, you see that, when the new structures coming, there's that element of, sustainability, comfort and everything. And so I would say it is happening everywhere. For sure, the level of intensity and the openness about that is varies. And finally, there's also sometimes the element of budget and how much money people are willing to spend, because some of these things sometimes may end up a little bit costing more than less in that sense. So that also plays a part.
Very good. And finally, thank you for being so generous with your time today. But finally, what kind of innovation can we expect from the Serge Ferrari team over the next kind of 18 to 24 months?
Well, I would say, I think among what we are already doing, I would more say about more working towards finding alternative solutions of different raw materials and different products. We are already working on. There's a very interesting product which we've recently brought out, which is targeting the transparent market, which we call a structural fluorinated transparent envelope, which is really targeting the transparent market, but giving a functionality of a very strong product. So you can do long walkways, you can do greenhouses, you can do some parts of the stadium also where you need lighting, but a good comfortable lighting. At the same time, you can have a good view through that you feel you're still under the sky. So that's something we are working on. We have developed some new non-combustible materials, because certain countries are requiring that. So we're working on that, those combinations. So these are few things which people can expect to see in the coming 12, 18, 24 months.
Very good. Thank you so much. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Nitin, for joining us and for sharing your expertise today. That was Nitin Govila, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Serge Ferrari. Also, my thanks to producer Carol Tallon and the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out the other real estate and construction shows on iPropertyRadio. Before we go, we'd like to give a special word of thanks to the sponsor, Proptech Ireland, the hub for innovators, investors, and indeed for industry leaders. So thank you for making these conversations possible, and thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Proptech Hot Seat here on iPropertyRadio.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you all for having me over. Great pleasure and enjoyed this conversation. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin.